Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob ENT podcast, the best sports podcast in New Jersey. I am joined by my co-host Miles and Greg. I am your co-host, your uncle, your cousin, your favorite person that's going to be moderating this episode. Thomas is still not worried. Fellas, how y'all doing?
Doing good.
Doing good, bro. A lot to talk about tonight.
Whole lot to talk about. But before we get into that, handle some business real quick. We trying to be here for a good time and a long time. You feel me? So to help us accomplish those goals, if you would do us a favor, share, like, subscribe, comment. We appreciate you big time. On this episode, we're going to be talking about NFL free agency. Y'all know that's booming right now. Mikal Bridges came out, said something about Tibbs. And we're going to talk about a couple of things regarding 5 years ago. I don't know if y'all know. 5 years ago, COVID went down. We're going to talk about life after that, what happened that year for each of us. Starting off, like I just said, in 2 days, it'll be 5 years to the day where sports stood still. Where was y'all at? What do y'all remember from that time when we all got the notification that all sports done up?
I mean, that's the thing. I remember hearing about it months before it even happened. Like they were talking about it in December, and that was back when Trump was still in office, and he was like, "Ah, it's nothing." So, you know, flash forward a few months, we're in March, and now it's ramping up. They're talking about it more and more, and then the infamous Rudy Gobert. Let me play the drums on the microphones as I leave my press conference. That's the thing I remember the most because one, how stupid can you be to like make light of something that could potentially be so serious as it turned out to be? Because people lost lives that year. I mean, I know people personally that lost family members to COVID and all that stuff. Um, so that year, it really put into perspective like you can't take anything for granted. Um, sure, we got sports, and sports helps take our mind off of things going on in our lives, any issues that we have going on. So when that was taken, and you kind of get to sit with your thoughts, you're just like, yo, what's going on in the world right now? Like there were times when I was driving through the city in March of that year, and normally if you're in the city, especially now, flashing lights everywhere. We had a curfew. The streets were dead in the city. Like if you wanted to get from Brooklyn to Manhattan, you could do it in like 10 minutes. That never happened. So, um, sports wise, one of the biggest memories I had from that moment was like usually in March, me and my dad buy tickets to the Big East tournament at MSG, and we'll go and watch whether that's St. John's, Villanova, usually, or Marquette to see who's going to come out of the Big East. And in my opinion, that's the most iconic conference tournament in college sports. Um, and just that day that everything shut down, just seeing almost like one by one, like you're at an airport and you're seeing flights cancel, cancel, cancel. That's what it looked like with the tournament. So it sucked. I was a little selfish at that point, thinking like, damn, like why can't they just play? Like they can still play it. We don't have to go to the game. Like I still want to see them play the game. But then you see in the following months like how serious it was, where we had to get masks and we had to, eventually they passed vaccines for us to take or not take. Um, so it was a crazy time in our country's history, but um, as always, we figure out a way to deal with it, prevail, and keep moving forward as a country, as a society. Um, so I feel like everybody kind of came together, and I mean, we still got sports that year, like golf. They social distance anyway, so that was easy to come back and play tournaments. But the NBA having the bubble, giving us something to watch during our lockdowns and stuff like that, that made it a lot easier to handle being kind of secluded in a way from the rest of the world. Because for me, I don't know about you guys, but at that time, you pretty much, if you weren't working or if you worked from home, you just with your family. That's it. Like all you had was your family at that point. So um, sports, like I said before, that's the biggest thing that brings us together. That's why you see these major events, NBA Finals, Super Bowls. Everybody comes together and watches that. We sit down and watch. So when the world stood still, the NBA found a way to give us some entertainment. And sure, they might knock it and say the bubble wasn't real basketball, but those dudes were hooping. Like they were hooping in the bubble. Um, so it you'll always remember that time in our lives, like similar to where were you when the towers were hit, or some of the other major events that happened to us in our lifetime. So um, yeah, uh, that's what I got.
Hey, before Greg, before you go, right? I'll throw this one out there because Miles mentioned a lot of good points. The biggest memory for me in that, because I had personally lost family members, in laws because of COVID. But one of the biggest remembers for me during that time, February 15th, 2020 was our first ever episode as a podcast. We was in person recording in the studio in Newark, and that changed everything. Everything changed within a month. We in person, we have emotion, we scheduling dates, we get into the studio, we got the sound engineer, everything. And then it all shut down. So that was one of my biggest memories. Like, yo, we started the podcast right before COVID hit and changed everything the rest of that year. And then that's when you had to figure out Zoom, you doing Zoom episodes and whole bunch of stuff. But Greg, the floor is yours.
Well, I definitely wasn't on the podcast at that time because I was going to be dodging no bullets, jump bullets to get to the studio. um, but yeah, man, no, it was. I'm so glad that sports continued. I think, I thank LeBron for his service because if, like they said, Pat Bev told the world that when Bron said, "Hey, we playing, we're going." Pat Bev said everybody was going. So if not for that, Kyrie wasn't trying to play, trying to take a stand, and nothing wrong with that. Like that's cool, but we needed basketball at that time, and so I'm really happy. And they still did take a stand as well, and some guys really took a stand, like Jonathan Isaac. I don't forget that. Never forget him. Um, so yeah, I'm happy we had sports during the time. I mean, COVID for me was I loved it. I lost family, but I loved the seclusion and everything. Right? Obviously, I didn't know what was happening, but I loved like going to the beach and no one was there. Like, and I'm talking about like towards the tail end of it. That was nice, man. I mean, y'all could stay home more often. I have no problem. Like, y'all could stay home more often and let me enjoy these things. I've got no problem. You know what it is? Like, I don't even like people like that. So it was great in that sense. But nah, man. I mean, it was a crazy time, and obviously the Rudy Gobert criticism. I think the hate for Rudy Gobert. I don't think that was the start of it. I don't think that's where it started. That's why we got to that place for him. It obviously is because he's him. He's just Rudy, and that's why. But like it ratcheted up to a different level right there. And I feel like we've never really stopped since then. We've kind of, I feel like people have disliked Rudy um, into like non-existence. Like we don't even think about Rudy like that anymore as a player, right? Outside of those runs with Minnesota, and even then, it was like a moment for us to criticize him and all that stuff. But now, I wasn't outside when we had curfew. I was inside. I wasn't violating the rules. I was wearing my mask and everything like that. I was conscious. But I caught COVID. It was a crazy time. Without sports, it would have been really dark. In those few weeks, but without sports, is what I really remember. That was tough, man. out going home and nothing's on, and when all you do is really watch sports, or and specifically basketball or whatever it may be, and there's nothing on, it was like devastating. Honestly, it was like, yo, like can't go work out really. Don't work out in the crib. It was a bad time. It was a really dark time in American history as well. And I guess not enough people agree with that because here we are again.
So you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned that during that time there were some players that took a stand. Obviously, during that time, also it was also issues dealing with racial stuff. So there was a stand taken while they were in the bubble. The NBA players, let's not forget the WNBA players too. They was making sure that they took a stand and that they made sure their voices were heard. They had this platform. The whole world was watching. Nobody was able to do nothing. Everybody was watching. What better time to take a stand? Somebody felt the same way. What better time to take a stand for my son? Third quarter, 20K in the building. I'm going to tell you, stop effing talking about my son. Keep my son name out your effing mouth. I don't care. I'm referencing LeBron coming up to Stephen A. Y'all let me know, do you feel that Stephen A crossed the line regarding LeBron and his coverage of Bronny?
I've gone back and forth on this. I think when think about it from what LeBron said specifically, and he says, "Hey, stop talking about my son." Look, truth of the fact of the matter is, Stephen A. Smith never said anything crazy about Bronny. Not that I can remember. Not truly. Um, Now, I think where he may have crossed the line is judging LeBron as a father just so carelessly on TV. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm begging you as a father, I'm begging you, please stop. Like LeBron's putting his son in harm's way. You know what I'm saying? I think that is crossing the line. I think we're no longer talking about sports. And look, First Take has been headed this way for a long time. They don't really just talk about. They don't. In fact, they don't talk about sports like the X's and O's of anything at all. There's no real analysis of what's going on. They don't talk about the hot teams in the NBA like OKC. And by the way, I'm the rare person that I don't blame you. I don't care what's happening in Oklahoma City. Like, and I don't think America cares. I think you guys are being disingenuous. I really believe that. I think they're great. They're a great team. It was a great game tonight between OKC and Boston. But like at the end of the day, if OKC and Cleveland are the best two teams in the NBA is not at its best. They're just not. And people have to stop lying to themselves about that. That's the way the history of the game has gone forever. These big market teams being great is what makes the league what it is. But that's a different. I'm sorry. I'm spiraling. Uh, I do think that Stephen A. Smith is out of bounds for talking about LeBron as a father. I think that's too far, right? You can give your opinion on whatever you want to give your opinion on Stephen A. Smith, but understand there are consequences when you cross certain lines. And criticizing him as a father for utilizing his influence to get his son to where he is today, when we see people who don't look like us do it all the time in different sectors of the world and different businesses all the time, and we sometimes we're on the short end of the stick with that stuff, right? We're the ones who are left without opportunities because of nepotism, because of favoritism, because of whatever it may be, racism, whatever it may be, right? Like I feel like he was really, really adamant and passionate about how LeBron shouldn't have utilized his influence to help Bronny get to this point. And I think it's ridiculous. You don't talk about Bronny and how well he's playing in the G League right now. You don't talk about him lighting up the G League, averaging like 21 points a game whenever he's out there playing real minutes. We don't talk about that stuff, right? But we're talking about it when he goes and checks into a Sixers game and Tyrese Maxey lights him up. It's kind of to be expected. He's a 55th pick. In comparison to other 55th picks in the history of the draft, Bronny's pretty damn good in comparison to those guys. Like he's really in line. His contract isn't unfair in comparison to theirs. His numbers are totally comparable to theirs. And Bronny is more famous than any other G League player in the history of the G League. So you have to take those measures of precaution to ensure that he's not in harm's way. I'm talking about him not playing road games, right? Like, so everyone makes this fuss and all this big deal, but Stephen A. Smith as a black man should have a different outlook on this. And this is my opinion. Like, I can't tell him what to think or anyone what to think, but you should have a different outlook on this than the one you've chosen to take publicly. I think you dislike LeBron James so much, and you said it. You told us, hey, me and Bron, we don't really F with each other like that. You said that. So I think you dislike him so much that you've been able to kind of turn a blind eye to what the positive of this is, and now you're attacking his fatherhood and his father skills. That is personal. That's about as personal as it gets, right? If I say something about someone as a father, they have every right to be upset at me. They might take a swing at me, realistically, and I can't say I blame them, right? So there's certain lines you just don't cross. Like there's certain lines you don't cross. I come on this podcast all the time. I have a good time. I get jokes off. Sometimes I teeter on that line, but I never cross it. I never ever cross it like that. Like you know what you're doing, and so to sit there and go on Gilbert Arenas' podcast and play victim after the fact, like it's really disingenuous. And saying that it's weak for Bron to come up to you and you're trying to spin it and say, well, Bron should have said what it was really about from the very beginning. That you should make use. If it's about you, then say it's about you. No, I think Bron covered it pretty well. It's about both things. They're both correlated. You're by messing with we're talking about him as a father publicly and disparaging him as a father and saying he's not a good father for putting Bronny in this situation. You are also you kind of are putting Bronny under unnecessary scrutiny by doing that. You're bringing unnecessary attention to Bronny at the same time. You are. If you really care too much about Bronny, like, oh, I feel bad about Bronny, I'm not going to talk about him. Heart condition. That's why I didn't go to any of his games. I don't want to add no pressure. Stephen A., you coming to a basketball game for Bronny's basketball game, it's not going to add no pressure. He has delusions of grandeur. He really thinks he's a bigger deal than what he is. It's pretty ridiculous. He's a really big head. But if that's really how you felt about Bronny and you want to protect Bronny, you never would have attacked LeBron as a father for the path that he put his son on. I think it's just disingenuous. You don't have Bronny's best interest at heart. So don't sit there and act like you do or act like you care. It doesn't make you look good. You don't look good at all. You should have backed off and you should have laid back. But now it's coming up. You're trying to use this as a moment to come up and use this to boost your popularity and all that stuff, right? Like you want to keep your name in the news. So you go on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, like, oh, you see, him talking to Richard Jefferson, and we're going off lip reading guys on Twitter and on social media, and he's saying, he made it about him. It's not about what I said about his son. Like you're taking an opportunity to do what you do best. That's all I'm saying. So he's the ultimate antagonizer. He's good at what he does. He's great at what he does, Stephen A. Smith. But it doesn't make you right in every situation. That he feels like he is, and it's kind of concerning that he thinks that because he's wrong. He's wrong. You don't talk about a guy's father, his ability to raise his children and the decisions he makes there. No, you don't do that.
Miles, I'm interested. I want to hear your thoughts on it, being that you are the elder statesman on the show regarding fatherhood. You have been a father the longest out of everybody on this podcast here. We know Greg is on the way.
Yeah, I see where LeBron's coming from. Where the criticism, sure, sports media, you're gonna get criticized no matter what. But like Greg said, when it's pointed towards LeBron, like, oh, like, how could you do this to him as a father? Like, you're almost talking down, like, do you know what you're doing as a father? Like, I don't like the way Stephen A. has made it look in the media, where he's like, oh, whining on First Take about it. Like, it just doesn't look good. So, sure, he can say like him and LeBron don't really mess with each other, but um, I'm sure there's been a level of respect there for what each person does. It's definitely a different relationship than what LeBron would have with Skip. Like Skip basically hates LeBron. Like it's been well documented. Stephen A. He's critical. He's been fair at times. He's covered the sport for so long that um, ever since AI was in the league till now, like I'd say he tries to be fair, but now that he has a show, some of his takes, it's more hot takes than first takes. So, um, yeah, and as a father, I wouldn't be happy about somebody trying to demean my, like he had Bronny when he was what, like 20. Something me and him have in common. Like I had my son at a young age too. So uh, and it's not easy, you know, starting off so young, and for him to even be in this position is incredible. So you would think that would be praised a lot more than criticizing him as a father, and should he even be at this level right now, and he's going to ruin his career, and this is selfish on Bron's part. You talking about the wrong things. And lately, Stephen A. always seems to be talking about the wrong things. Um, but ESPN appreciates that. That's why he keeps getting more and more money. They want him to talk about these things because it gets dialogue going. Like now we're talking about this situation, and but and then Stephen A. going on his press tour, going to the different podcasts, talking his stuff, saying like that was weak. You gonna step to me like that at the game? I'm like, dog, you're not gonna do anything. You saying it like you if it was outside the what is it called? Not the Staples Center anymore. Isa,
Stop being disrespectful. Crypto.
crypto. Let's say it's in a private parking lot. What are you gonna do, Stephen A? If LeBron steps to you, you're not gonna like step back to him and be like, hold on now, hold on now. Like I don't need to hear all that, Stephen A. So um, I appreciate Bron stepping to him. Um, it was funny though seeing him and Richard Jefferson talking off to the side like that, where they were saying it in that manner, where it this whole thing is just it blows my mind. But as a parent, I would defend my son in all ways of acts of life, um, whether it's something that somebody appreciates or they disagree with. That's still my blood. So there's nothing you could say that'll stop me from defending my son.
So only thing I would add to this is I think LeBron, he took an L in this regard. Him going up to Stephen A during the game, packed house, y'all playing the Knicks, it's on TV, bunch of cameras there. This is all wins for Stephen A. All wins for Stephen A. He just that same day is when he got the contract of the what was it, 5-year, $100 million. That's wins for Stephen A. I rather he would have did it behind closed doors, because then we in a situation where it's like we ain't get to see nothing. So now it's as usual, Stephen A. and he had a talk with Bron, he had a talk with this player, he had a talk with that player, and we just take it as a grain of salt. It's just Stephen A. talking. We saw it in person. We saw the seriousness in LeBron's face. I get it 100%, defend your son, but I feel it's turned out to be wins for Stephen A. Because like you said, he's been on this media tour since, and all the numbers on First Take, I can imagine, look quite nice. They look quite nice. In that game, though, they played the Knicks, and I was glad to see he goes to talk to Stephen A. and then comes back into the game, and they walk those Knicks down, and the Lakers get the dub. Very clutch play by him too. It was beautiful. Like I agree with what's his name, Nick Wright. That was legendary. You check Stephen A. and then y'all go win the game. Legendary. Within that game, though, one of the players was this guy named Mikal Bridges. So before the show started, it was not on our rundown, but Mikal came out. It was a Bleacher Report article that came out. Forgive me if I don't have the right person who wrote it or anything like that, but he came out and the headline was Mikal Bridges asked Tibbs to play the starters less minutes. The quote that he has was, "Sometimes it's not fun on the body," Bridges said, per Stephen Bondi of the New York Post. So it's not Bleacher Report, my bad. You'll want that as a coach, but also talk to him a little bit, knowing that we've got a good enough team where our bench guys can come in and we don't need to play 48 minutes, 47 minutes. We've got a lot of good guys on this team that can take away minutes, which helps the defense, helps the offense, helps tired bodies being out there and giving up all these points. It helps just keeping fresh bodies out there. This has been the MO for Tibbs his entire career as a head coach. Is Tibbs on his way out next season because of this mentality?
I feel like it depends on what happens in the playoffs. Honestly, I think it's that close to boiling over. I don't. They ride for Tibbs. Um, he's gotten them to this point from just getting them to play hard, and he's going to ride for them too. But it always comes to a point where a coach can only get you so far, and I think we've reached that point because there's enough talent on this roster to play a lot better in these marquee games, to have guys looking a lot better in these marquee games. Um, and I know I could see where Bridges is coming from because later in that article I read him saying like they're still working on things systematically, seeing where he fits, and um, you have Brunson, you have Towns. He's still trying to figure out where he fits in that mold. I feel like a younger coach might have figured that out by now. Like Tibbs is stuck in his ways. He's gonna rock with his main guys. He'll throw hard out there for 45 minutes, even though he could go 0 for 8 from three. Like sometimes you got to read the room. Like he's locked in too much to his guys. So, and you look around the league, you see some of the best teams playing undrafted guys minutes, giving them, and they're able to develop those guys and give you good minutes. Like Luke Cornett on the Celtics gives them, he gives them great minutes off the bench. Um, you look at OKC, they've got Lou Dort, who's at this point he's not in that same category, but you got to develop these guys, and the only way they can develop is if they play. Like they drafted Kolick from Marquette, Big East Player of the Year, point guard, something we needed. We looked at the Pacers last year, and they had a guy like McConnell running rampant. You had uh, Nemhard doing his thing. You would think maybe I learned from that. Maybe I use some of these other guys, and you try to do that during the season. You don't want to try to incorporate all these guys in the playoffs. It's way too hard to do that. So we're already 65 games in. At this point, it's getting too late to try to figure that out. Hopefully, at some point in these next 15 to 20 games, he does start playing some guys less because the playoffs is brutal. Like we need to survive into the playoffs. Like Brunson's down, but that doesn't mean we play our main guys 45 minutes a game. And who is it? Mitch gets 6 minutes here. Shemet gets 5 minutes here. Like, how are you supposed to get in a rhythm if you're not playing? So there's a lot of criticism. I'm getting long winded. It's the Knicks, whatever. But yeah, I think Tibbs, if we were to lose in the first round, he's not going to be here next year. And that's just, you got to face the noise. This team, you pushed all your chips in for Mikal Bridges. You got to make it work. You pushed your chips in for Towns. Great choice. Getting off of that Julius Randle, not even contract, just him in general. So the pieces are there for us to be able to win. Pieces are there for us to be one of the top two teams in the Eastern Conference. But for some reason, he hasn't been able to get it over the hump of beating these top teams. And yeah.
Hey, me personally, I think Tibbs gotta be on the out regardless. This is what he does everywhere. He doesn't get over the hump. It's a lot of injuries that happen with his teams, but that's just my viewpoint on it. Y'all, like you said before in other episodes, Miles, I got like a 2-3 year window of this championship expectancy. y'all might need a new voice in there because if y'all keep him for the next 2-3 years, it'll be another repeat of just Knicks misery. Roster looks good. It looks good on paper. We should be able to get it done, but for some reason we don't get it done. And in this case, I don't think it'll be the players. It'll be heavily on Tibbs. But Greg, what say you?
You know, I guess the message is correct. The messenger I don't like. They traded 5 first-round picks for you, Mikal. You have not played well this year. You have not put up to that level. You know what I'm saying? All year, you trade 5 first-round picks for a player, you expect them to come in and give you 18, 20 points a game, right? Have a great defensive impact on the game. Do something at an elite level. I think it is fair to say he has not done anything at an elite level all year long from the Knicks. I think it's very fair. So when you come out and say this, and your name's attached to it, and that's the Fon Bondi article, and everyone gets to see that Mikal Bridges feels this way, it's tough. Like it's tough for people to deal with. And I had Knicks fans hitting me up. I have friends that are Knicks fans that are like, "Yo, like I'm done with this dude." Like, and Knicks fans, like they're done with him now. When he plays well, they'll be back on board. That's what Knicks fans do. But right now, they're like, "Yo, I don't rock with Mikal Bridges," and I understand that sentiment because. Yo, you're not playing well. Like, you're not the messenger here. If Jalen Brunson has said this, it hits a lot different, doesn't it? If Josh Hart said it, it hits a lot different, doesn't it? Those guys that are heart and soul of your basketball team. They're not talking about it, but you chose to say something. And really what Mikal did, and Mikal think he's slick. Mikal know he got to get a re-up on his contract. It's coming up. And he's like, yo, I don't want to play for this Joker anymore. So what do you do? What is the classic playbook move that NBA guys do with any kind of sway at all? They go to the media and they complain about their coach in some subtle way. That's what he did. He wants Tibbs gone. Now, the joke's on Mikal because if you're a basketball historian, you understand that Tibbs can't keep a job because of this exact reason. He runs guys into the dirt. He literally ran Derrick Rose into the dirt. Like he's done it all throughout his career. These guys fall apart playing for him because he's an old school coach, and these old school coaches believe in 6-man rotations. And they will burn those guys to the ground. It's not just Tibbs; it's a basketball community problem at every level. I see it all the time. So, look again, the right message from the wrong guy, and at the wrong time, It's an inappropriate time. Let's call a spade a spade. Tibbs is gone because there's no magical run coming for this basketball team in the playoffs because the issue they have one guy on their team that teams fear when he has the ball in his hands. One guy, Jalen Brunson. Cat is a damn good player, high level player. He can fit right on in, but he's not like an offensive orchestrator or killer with the basketball in his hands. That is not him. You need somebody next to Jalen Brunson who puts that kind of level of stress on the defense as well, an equal amount of stress. Right now, they only have one guy. So, in my opinion, this playoff run probably goes to round 2 and it's probably sputters out right there because how do you compete with the Clevelands of the world, the way they're playing right now? And with Evan Mobley's ascension and Garland playing good basketball, and then how do you compete with Boston? Those two teams, and Milwaukee worries me a little bit too. They put up a really good fight against you guys because they got 2 guys I'm talking about, Giannis and Dame, who are going to put a lot of pressure on your defense every time they come on the floor. With the Knicks, you're only worried about one guy. It's really like, yo, if we can stop Jalen Brunson, we're gonna be okay. And then Cat is just he's not a presence offensively enough in games. LeBron completely took him out of that game. It's LeBron James, I get that, but we've seen it happen too many times. He just comes and goes. It's too hit and miss. And Mikal, we know what he's on. He ain't playing well. So unless that flips and changes. They traded for Mikal with that in mind, by the way. I don't think it was just like, oh, catch him on the corner and shoot threes, Mikal, and play good defense. No, it's like, no, your offensive game is expanded. We need that next to Jalen Brunson, another a threat on the floor, and he hasn't been that. So, and he's not defending at a high level. So it's a shame, man. It is what it is. It is what it is. I know people don't like hearing me talk about the Knicks and everything like that, but when it's real, it's real. Just keeping it real, man. That's all I'm doing.
Hey, you mentioned within that the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? They have just alone on their winning streaks, they have 2 15-game winning streaks in the same season, being the 6th team ever in NBA history to do that. and they also have a 12-game winning streak. On those winning streaks alone, that's 42 wins just on their winning streaks alone, and they're still in the playoffs just off of that alone. Is it time that the Cavs get more respect as serious contenders to win it all?
Uh, we kind of just talked about this earlier in the pod, man. And look, yes, they deserve a lot of respect. The reason why people don't take them seriously as championship contenders is because they've never done it before, and they're doing this without a superstar on their team, and they're doing it in Cleveland. And I think all those things matter. It just does. I love basketball. I love watching. I love watching great basketball. They've been fun to watch, but the reality of it is that those three factors I just named are the reason why people don't take them as seriously. And again, they're unproven. You've got to do it. You've got to get it done. It's the same thing as OKC. It's the same thing. Like teams aren't going to be scared of OKC until they prove they can do it. So it's not much different with Cleveland. They again, like they're a great team, historically great even. Like that's where we're headed with them in terms of like the totality of their season. And Kenny Atkinson is an amazing coach. I knew he'd have success. I knew he would. I knew the Nets should never fired him, especially for the likes of Kyrie Irving. Different discussion. But like I said, like I just think they have to get the job done to earn the respect that they want and they crave so badly. And honestly, if I'm Cleveland fans or if I'm the player on the Cavs, I don't give a damn what people think. Like I'm just trying to go out there and win games, right? Like we're talking about basketball discourse as an overall. Well, I'll tell you this: you guys are all liars. Stop lying and sitting here like and doing the Charles Barkley BS where it's like, oh well, we don't care about the Lakers being good, or we don't care about the Knicks being good, or we don't care about these top team, Boston, these blue blood franchises, these big city Chicago, like these teams being great. Yeah, you do. That's when the NBA is at its best. Just look at the history of the league. The NBA is at its best when these big time cities, these big time metropolitan areas across the country have great basketball teams. That is the reality of it. When they have superstars, Luka going to the Lakers did in fact save the NBA season. And by the way, don't tell me it didn't when the numbers bear it out. When the viewership on his games, like Boston versus LA of a weekend ago, was through the roof. Or the viewership on his game, Dallas versus LA. When Dallas went to LA, the viewership was through the roof. Like the people are telling you what they want. So don't go on TNT, Charles Barkley, and tell me that, oh no, it's about and that stupid accent. Oh, it's about it's about Orlando, or it's about Cleveland, or it's about OKC. No one really cares, and the average fan doesn't know Shea. They don't know him. You have to be a real hoop nerd to know him. Okay, and the average basketball fan doesn't know Donovan Mitchell. If if you ask a 15-year-old girl who Donovan Mitchell is right now, you know what she'll say? Oh, that's dude this Coco Jones. That's what she's gonna tell you. If she knows Coco Jones, by the way. So like, don't sit here and tell me that this stuff doesn't matter. It matters that the big time cities have great teams. LA is so much fun, and I'm telling you right now, I watched the OKC versus Celtics game tonight. Great game. Had no juice. Yo, no, was anyone talking about that game leading up to the game? It had no juice. The best thing for the NBA is the Lakers getting to the finals. I'm telling you right now, Boston, LA finals would revitalize the NBA in ways we have not seen. But we can't control those things. We'll see what happens. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if I got on tangent. I think it's still all pretty correlated. But to sit here and act as if like, you know, we don't respect Cleveland. We're not talking enough about these small market teams, blah blah blah. The NBA was not founded on small market teams being great. It's about superstars in cities where that embrace and cities that love superstars and big time cities and the most recognizable cities in the country. That's all it is. Knicks being great is great for the NBA. Like bottom line, you know what I mean? So, I'm just okay. I've said my piece.
I mean, sure, the Cavs are contenders. They got the best record in the league right now. They've been rolling throughout the regular season, but I mean, we've seen this song and dance before. I mean, Atlanta once upon a time was a one seed and ran into the playoffs, but then they ran into LeBron. So these teams can be beat, by experience, playoff experience. Um, they got a lot of young guys on that team who haven't really had positive playoff success. Um, Mobley didn't play well the last time they were here. Who else? Darius Garland didn't play well the last time he was in the playoffs. So these are a bunch of guys who have a lot to prove. So they got a chip on their shoulder, but playoff pressure is a lot different than a couple regular season games in March. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. I'm sure they're going to get a favorable matchup in the first round, and then who do they play in the second round? Possibly Detroit or Milwaukee, one of those teams. If they face Milwaukee, that could be interesting. Um, so I'm not going to say that they're the runaway favorites to win the East, especially when you still have Boston there, who's done it and done it for multiple years. They've made a couple finals runs. They're basically they got a ticket to the Eastern Conference every time the season starts. So to say that Cleveland is going to knock them off, I got to see it first.
Gotta see it to believe it. Now, I promised y'all at the beginning of the show that we will get into NFL free agency. If you are just now seeing this and that's all you wanted, you could skip ahead to the 41-minute mark. We're gonna get into it. First one we're gonna mention, we're gonna give some grades to some of these signings and trades. There's been some trades that's happened so far this offseason. Geno Smith traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. What grade do you give that transaction?
I say a D plus.
Oh, no.
I say a D plus. Geno's cool, and he gets to reunite with Pete.
Wow.
He gets to reunite with Pete, but does that put them over the top? Like this team is bare. They got rid of Devontae. Their best receiver is Jacoby Myers. Sure, they got Brock Bowers, but I mean, what else you got for me? Like Geno, are you expecting Geno to go from Spider Man to Superman or something like that? Nope. I'm not talking Drake, but I don't see it. I just don't see it. So sure, they got the sixth pick in the draft. They've got the whole draft to get better and free agency and all that stuff. But Geno, he was cool. There's a reason he got traded though. They weren't building around him in Seattle. Waiting for Griff to hop on the pod in a couple minutes to dispute that. But um, yeah, Geno wasn't getting a second contract with this team. I think they wanted to draft a replacement at some point over the last couple years, but the opportunity never presented itself. Like if Anthony Richardson would have dropped, maybe they would have gambled on that. Um, but yeah, Geno back with Pete. It worked so great the first time.
Wow. Wow, that was surprising. I thought you were joking. I thought when you said D, I thought I heard it wrong. I thought my sound was messing. I thought you said B.
I said a D plus. That's like a 69.
Wow. Wow. I'm giving this move an A. I think it's an A, and I think it's an A for really one big reason. I think teams have gotten way too caught up in this idea of like drafting your franchise quarterback. That is hard to do. And look, the teams are going to deliberately not tank, and you're going to win a stupid game in December and take yourself out of the first overall pick or the top three picks, and you do it year after year. You're you're running a losing race anyways. You just are. You are. Statistically, it doesn't make any sense. Like so at that point, you got to get a proven commodity at quarterback to keep your team afloat, and it's a good stopgap option for them. It makes them viable immediately in terms of just winning football games. They're not going to be a playoff team necessarily, but they're going to be respectable, and they could go to make a playoff run. And Geno's a good player. Geno's a good quarterback. He's a good NFL quarterback. Is he great? No, he's not. So I see what Miles is saying, but it's not so much about getting a franchise quarterback in there as it is about getting a quarterback that can play the position at a high level and give your fans something to root for week to week. you give your fans hope, and you brought in a new front office. You have Tom Brady there. You have Pete Carroll there. Like this familiarity with Pete Carroll. These fans need something to believe in. It can't be every year. Can't be like, yo, we're trying to tank for the best quarterback in the draft because only one team gets that lucky a year, pretty much. This year we had a generational draft. Great, 3 teams got lucky. Awesome. Maybe 4 of the Vikings hit the head or nail on the head. I really want to talk about the Vikings, by the way, because they're interesting to me. But I don't want to get on a tangent. But yeah, I think they did a great job, the Raiders, getting him. And I think, look, guys like Max Crosby, who have been there for the whole career, I mean, they deserve a chance to win. Even Max Crosby, I'm pretty sure he says the N word when no one's around, but he deserves a chance to win. And so I think that it's a good move. It's a good move for them and a good move for their fans. I'm happy for their fans. Seriously, I think they have a chance to do some cool things.
Yo, you know what division they're in?
They're fine.
They got to play those.
That's all the more reason why I don't go get Gardner Minshew or go get Jameis Winston, and I tell my fans, oh yeah, eat this pot of dog crap, because we're gonna run this seat, we're gonna play this season. You trying to sell tickets too. You're disrespectful to people. Like, you need to stop doing that. Like, we ain't going to this Allegiant Stadium, whatever it's called over there, the new stadium over there, and I'm gonna go watch Gardner Minshew play football, throw the ball to Brock Bowers. So the only attraction you have on your roster is Brock Bowers. But you're supposed to be a serious team you will take seriously. Yeah, all right. Give me a break. Go get Geno. That's a good place to start. Good stopgap quarterback. You can always trade up in a future draft for a quarterback. You need to be respectable in the now. This makes them respectable. Geno can play, and Geno's a good player. He really is. I mean that. So I think it's a good move for them, and it brings respectability back to the franchise. Too many teams have lost. Bring back shame. We need to have shame in these terrible seasons. Bring it back. It's time to compete.
They honestly should have just gone with a stopgap, like a.
He is a stopgap.
He is an expensive stopgap. That's
fine.
This is a franchise.
Why would Cap matter to a team that has no money allocated to any players on the roster? It doesn't make any. Besides Max Crosby, who else are they really paying? Brock Bowers is a rookie. They ain't got nobody. So spend the money on a quarterback to make your team respectable in the now. It doesn't make a difference with the money they spend.
So if they were to draft their next quarterback next year, Geno's going to win enough games to take them out of the running for one of those top couple quarterbacks.
They can always trade up. You got to think about the math game we're playing too. Like, there really aren't enough teams in the NFL that need franchise quarterbacks, so we're like, you can't trade up. And especially if you get a strong class again, like Dylan Raiola's class or whatever in a few years. You know what I'm saying? So you can't worry about that. Your job is on the line now. You are going to get fired if you keep losing. That's just the way it works. Look at Joe Shane in New York. He's a great example of that. You just thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna lose until I get my guy. No, but every year I win that one game that takes me out of contention for the top guy. Nah, man, you can't take chances. It's time. You got to go get it. You got to go get it how you can. Win 7, 8 games, man. Keep yourself alive. I hate it. I agree with you, Miles. I hate that. I think you should be looking to lose every year if you're not the franchise quarterback. But that's not the way the league works. And the sooner you accept it, well, the sooner the easier it is to watch the BS.
So in Seattle, they traded Geno and they signed Sam Darnold, $100.5 million contract, $55 million in guarantees. What grade do you give that? And of course, being that he left the Vikings, I know Greg alluded to it. He wanted to mention some stuff on the Vikings. So after the grade, you could touch on the Vikings.
I'd give it a B. It's a good signing. Yeah, he's coming off a great year, career year. But now what is he coming into? Like, you just got rid of DK. Tyler Lockett's no longer there. Best receiver you have is JSN, who is good, but who's Sam throwing to? Like, last year he had weapons on Minnesota. So you can kind of say maybe that's why he was so great. You got a generational talent like Justin Jefferson. You've got a great number 2 in Jordan Addison. You've got TJ Hawkinson. You've got Aaron Jones. The list goes on. You look at this team, they've got Kenneth Walker, pretty good running back, injury prone. You got JSN, and then what else? That's kind of it. So I don't know what Sam's walking into if they want him to be the savior. Hope maybe during the draft they address some of these issues, uh, receiver wise, tight end wise. But um, at least they pivoted from Geno. I think Sam's better than Geno. Um, I'm not beating Geno down, but he's he's an average quarterback. So I wonder what Griff is thinking about this. He's been real quiet, but maybe he likes it, maybe he doesn't. Doesn't matter. They did it already. So
Uh, I agree with you, Miles. I think it's a B. I think that Sam benefited from being in Minnesota last year. I think if Minnesota wasn't gonna fully commit to JJ McCarthy, then why not go back there, even if it was for a little less money? That's my read on it. But because you have everything around you, and that's the reason why you had your success is because of you were insulated with a great offensive coach, with great offensive players all around you. Like it's really his success is so much more about what was around him in Minnesota. So to go to Seattle and to get the bag, but to go there where the offensive line is terrible, and Geno was playing for some really bad pockets, and they have not gotten the offensive coordinator position right in years. They've really struggled with that. Like they've really struggled with finding an offensive coordinator that takes advantage of defenses and puts their quarterback in the best position to succeed, which is why we saw Geno have a down year after he had that breakout season as well. So when you think about all those different things and you go over there, it could be like party starts and then party ends like real quick. This thing could just go to crap fast for Sam Darnold, right? So I think trading DK is cool for Seattle. I don't think he's that good. I've always felt that way about him. I think he's a physical specimen, great, but I don't think he's a technically sound receiver. Not really. I don't view him that way. I think he's just a physical marvel. So that's fine. JSN's very good, and they lost Lockett. I don't think they kept him. So I'm interested to see what Seattle does and how they build this thing out around Sam Darnold. But yeah, I think it's a B because of what's around him. I don't think he's like an elevator, or he needs to be in a good system. But maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. So we'll see. Minnesota. Minnesota is interesting to me only because we hear them names and Aaron Rodgers' potential local destination, right? And I know up until that point they had talked about bringing in Daniel Jones, which obviously would have not been competition for JJ McCarthy. You would hope not. If that's competition for JJ McCarthy, oh my God, everyone over there is getting fired. So I think the weird thing is the lack of commitment from that organization to JJ McCarthy. If this Aaron Rodgers report isn't smoke, why would you want to bring in Aaron Rodgers there when you have the guy you took number 10 overall in the draft? Right? With your first overall pick, you take this quarterback. We know what the NFL is like. Okay, he didn't play last year. Fine, he had a year on the bench. So it's great. But usually, if you're picked that high, you play within a year or so. You're within a year at a minimum. So I'm very baffled by their decision making, and it makes me think that either one of two things is happening. Either JJ McCarthy's injury is more serious than we thought, and he's not going to be ready. I don't believe that, by the way. Or they don't really believe in him yet. They don't think he's ready to play, which then makes me wonder why you would take him with that pick. Why would you waste that pick on him? And if they can't ever get him out there on the field and be comfortable with him, that is going to be a foul offense for a GM and that GM's done a great job, by the way. But that's a big deal missing on that quarterback, unless you win in the meantime. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to win you like a championship in the interim. So just very weird, very, very mixed signals from that organization. I would think that they'd be looking to get a cheap backup in there to support JJ, and you're going all in with the JJ McCarthy experience in Minnesota. But that doesn't look like it's going to be the case, and it's very interesting. So I'm just reading between tea leaves there.
On the front with the DK situation, with him being traded to the Steelers, they gave him a new contract at 5 years, $150 million for a second-round pick. He actually led the NFL in 20-plus yard receptions. DK to the Steelers, what grade would you give it?
I'd say a B plus. I think you're finally getting your true number one. Like Pickens is cool, but he's too inconsistent. But as a number two, I like Pickens if he can get his head on straight. So DK as your number one. Also, depending on what the quarterback situation is, because right now they don't have one. Um, so if it's Rodgers, like it's sounding like it's going to be, this is a great pickup. And you can see Rodgers airing it out a little bit. You've got two deep threats in two big receivers in Pickens and Metcalf. So um, I know they've been looking to make a trade at some point for the last couple of years for a star receiver. Now they have one. Um, is it enough to put them over the top? We'll see. Because, like I said, they don't have a quarterback. They flirted with bringing Fields back, but I feel like he was kind of turned off by them the way things happened last year and the benching and the uncertainty that comes with him being on Pittsburgh. So you jump over to the Jets, and it's almost like a trade. We'll get Fields. You guys can have Rodgers. What's left of him, which is still a pretty good quarterback in this league. So, um, yeah,
Uh, I mean, it's a good move for them. I didn't know I know that stat about DK. It really doesn't change my opinion about him. I've seen him get shut down too many times for me to be like, number one. I don't think he's better than George Pickens. That's not my read on it. I think George Pickens is an a-hole. So he kind of takes himself out of games. You know what I mean? Like, and he makes it hard for him to get out there and perform with consistency because of the off the field antics, the on the field antics. But I think he's super talented, man. I think Pickens is a lot harder for defenses to stop, just week in and week out, as well. It's vertical threat, intermediate, can make all the catches, great catch radius. He's a hands catcher. I like him a lot. I really like his game. I think there's no question about his game. It's just about George Pickens, the person. Will George get out of his own way? It's him versus him. DK, I just think there's limitations to him technically as a route runner. So that's why I feel like that about him. It's kind of what I watch. When I watch him, that's kind of what I gather. But regardless, it's a good move. Obviously, it makes them better. It makes them more explosive offensively. If they get the right quarterback in there, if Aaron Rodgers decides in the next century that he wants to go play there or not, we'll have to wait and see, right? If he decides he actually wants to go there, then that could be great. That could be a great decision for that organization. Two big targets. It could work. I don't, again, like all questions aside about DK, I think it's a good move for the Steelers. So I'd give it about a B. I would. I think it's a good move for them.
Now I
Lot to give
don't
up for DK though. Just saying, lot to give up.
Now I don't know the full roster of the Steelers, and if they have somebody that could be in the slot. I feel these two is kind of repetitive. That's
Yes.
where my concern would be. All right, you got two big wide receivers. That's good for going down the field. Even if you keep Russell Wilson, he loves throwing the moon balls and all of that good stuff. Y'all don't really have another different type of wide receiver. Y'all got two of the same wide receivers. And honestly, both have moments where they take themselves out of the game for on the field or off the field antics. Staying in Pittsburgh, Darius Slay signed with the Steelers 1 year, $10 million. What grade do you give that? Along with what grade are you giving the Eagles as a whole with losing a lot of players that are key on their defense?
You win a championship, you're gonna lose guys. So I'm not surprised, and they play a dangerous game with the cap over there anyway. So it's just bound to the other shoes gonna drop. That's what's gonna happen with them. I'm more interested in him taking a shot at Jalen Hurts on the way out. I thought that was interesting, which they all seem to do, by the way. But I'm crazy though for my take on Jalen Hurts. But his teammates, they say crazy things about Jalen Hurts. They say, "Oh, he's not top five, and he's not." Okay, all right, but I'm crazy. Anyways, uh, what I would say about him going to the Steelers, I didn't feel like it was an incredibly significant move. I think it helps them. They do need help at corner. He's a damn good one. He's solid. But I think what's going to move the needle for the Steelers more than anything else is quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, they don't get the right quarterback there, they're not going to win anything anyways. They're going to be stuck in mediocrity like they've been for the past since Big Ben has retired, right? And even a little bit before that. So if you don't have the right quarterback there to maximize your opportunities offensively out there, it doesn't matter. Like the defense was always great there. They're historically great. Every time they go out there and play, they put a product out there defensively that's going to get stops and they can win a championship. It's always about offense with them. And if they can't go ahead and score points, none of this matters. None of this really matters, right? So Darius Slay at the end of the day is relatively insignificant. He just is. I mean, in the grand picture of things for Pittsburgh fans, they care more about who's playing quarterback than they should. They should.
I like the pickup. I think he can be a good mentor to Joey Porter Jr. That's been their kind of the guy who follows the number one on opposing offenses. So I know he helped out Quinyon last year. Those were his guys. This is going to be the same thing here. I think this is going to be his last season in the league. He mentioned. So yeah, it's all about kind of helping the next generation for the Steelers, and everybody has that vet. This is going to be Joey Porter's vet because he's good. He just needs to work on technique a little bit. Sometimes he could be a little handsy. Slay's been one of the best corners in the league for the last decade or so. So I think it's a good pairing. I didn't expect the Steelers to give him $10 million to come play for them for a year. He's worth it, but I feel like they could be spending money in other ways. But cap is a myth in the NFL.
Staying within the division, the Baltimore Ravens, of course, they had a big sign. They signed back Ronnie Stanley, but somebody that they did bring in, one of Derrick Henry's old teammates, DeAndre Hopkins, is a Baltimore Raven, 1 year, $6 million. What grade do you give this Ravens signing?
C. Any like I saw a post earlier today. They said if a receiver is going to the Ravens or the Titans, it's over. D Hop, it's GG's, bro. It was a great career, but I mean, you showed your ass in the Super Bowl. I don't want to put all that blame on you, but you were dropping passes. Impact is not really felt in Kansas City, and it's not like he's going to an explosive passing offense for receivers in Baltimore. If anything, you don't have Deontay Johnson's phone number. You could ask him questions before you go somewhere. But it's nice for the Ravens to sign receivers, even if D Hop is here 6 years too late. Um, does it help them in the grand scheme of things? I don't know. 'Cause I still think he's gonna throw to Mark Andrews. He's still got Zay Flowers as a security blanket. Bateman is still there, who he likes Bateman a lot. Is he gonna like D Hop more? No, because that's not how it's worked. So I just found it funny that he signed in Baltimore when he probably could have waited, gone somewhere else. Maybe it's just about the money. That was his best money offer on the table. But I didn't really like the signing for him. That is for the Ravens. You can't. It never hurts to have too many receivers.
There's been a lack of investment from them with the wide receiver position. That's kind of what I was thinking about, just big picture. And if they never win a Super Bowl, it'll be the front office's fault for never really investing in the wide receiver position in a real way. I mean, obviously, they got Zay Flowers as a real investment, but Zay Flowers is a slot guy. Like he's not like a number one receiver on the outside. He's not that. So they've never made that real investment at all with the wide receiver position, thinking that they can just kind of milk the Likely and Andrews experience. But to not have a guy that Lamar can throw the ball to and just know, hey, like if it's 50-50, it's not really 50-50. He's going to catch it. He's never given him that luxury at all in his career. And I don't know how they expect to actually win a Super Bowl You know what I'm saying? Like it's the definition of insanity to continue to run the same kind of like formula back. We're gonna run the football. We got Derrick Henry, which is great. It worked, but it didn't really work because the standard is winning a Super Bowl. It's not a conference championship. So it's a bit ridiculous for them to continue to spin their wheels like this with this same experiment. And then you're gonna announce you signed DeAndre Hopkins. Like really, you're disrespecting people in Baltimore, guys. They're not the most patient bunch in the world. So it's really interesting to kind of see, what will come of that, what they'll do if they'll draft somebody in the first round. Hopefully, they go ahead and invest in an actual number one wide receiver.
Staying with wide receivers, and some will say maybe on the back end, or he could have just been in a bad situation. Devontae Adams is with the LA Rams with Puka Nacua. What grade do you give?
I give them an A+ for getting Devonte Adams to be the number 2 behind Puka. Like that might be one of the best number 2 guys in the league right now. Even though he probably wouldn't say he's a number 2, but at this point in time, Puka is better than Devonte Adams. So um, having Matthew Stafford back and those two guys, that's gonna be tough to stop. Like Puka's already established himself a little bit in the league. Devontae is going to be sort of that underneath security blanket. Um, and I think he's more reliable when it comes to being available. Like they're already still trying to get off of Cooper Cup's contract. And at this point, it looks like a release is more likely than a trade. So, but that's just a testament to his career sort of with the Rams. Outside of that one historic year, he's been hurt very often. So if they were to make a great run in the playoffs, you're going to need another guy next to Puka. And Puka's dealt with injuries too. So you don't want it to all fall on his shoulders. So bringing in a guy like Devonte Adams, who those guys don't just fall off of trees, or in this case, they did. He did. He fell out of New York. So, but great signing back on the West Coast where he's most comfortable, back at home. So I love the signing for the Rams.
Great signing. I give it an A. I think Devontae's got plenty left in the tank. He's playing with Stafford. You're playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl potentially. It's a great fit. Makes so much sense. And I'm glad Devontae wasn't so stupid as to hitch his wagon to Aaron Rodgers again.
I am glad that he didn't do that as well. We don't know where A-Rod's going to end up. Great decision making by him. Maybe wifey came in and was like, all right, let's speak some sense into you. It didn't work out. That's still your buddy, your best friend, but he's not there anymore as a quarterback talent. Two more before we end off this episode. The Commanders, they trade for Laramie Tunsil. What do you grade that transaction?
A+. A+. What a move. A+. That is a phenomenal move. This is, see, Jaden Daniels is such a great football player. He's great already. He's great. This is what happens. Like when you get the quarterback right, everything else starts to start to work out. They're building something special in Washington, man. They really, really are. I was actually out in Washington this past weekend picking up the dog that I got, and I was talking to the guy, the breeder. He's a Washington fan. I'm like, oh, listen, like I'm a Giants fan, but the truth is, like, I like watching you guys. I got no problem. Like this Jaden Daniels kid, he's the real deal. I really enjoy his work. So look, man, it's nothing personal. You guys deserve respect. But little side note there. But like, yo, I love what he's done. I love the moves that Adam Peters is making. That trade is a phenomenal trade. It's going to protect him. They need help in the trenches. They're addressing that. They're going to continue to address that throughout the draft as well, which is even scarier for the rest of the NFC and the league because they got the quarterback right. I don't see a year or two drop off. And you got to think about CJ Stroud's drop off over in Houston. It's ironic because his drop off came with protection issues. It really wasn't that CJ Stroud wasn't the same player. It's just the protection wasn't good. What do you do to get ahead of it if you're the Commanders? I almost called them the Commandos. I had to stop myself. But you go out there and you get him protection immediately. You fortify the trenches to ensure he can go out there and be the best version of himself. Great trade. A+.
Yeah, I'd give him an A+ too. You get that strong left tackle to block for you. You want to surround him with the most talent possible. They did that, getting Debo to be a solid number 2 gadget player for them. Now you got the blind side protected, and that it doesn't end there. They're going to address more things in the draft, but to get Tunsil, who I didn't even know he was on the block, to get traded, and it confuses me why Houston would do that, because you should be hoarding as many tackles and O linemen as possible. Because I mean, the CJ we saw last year, that wasn't rookie CJ. That wasn't the same guy. So, but hey, this helps out Jaden Daniels, great quarterback right now. They're going to be right back up there again next season. So, A+.
Another quarterback that got signed, Justin Fields, is a New York Jet. 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guarantee. Most are saying this is really just a 1-year deal. They could probably get out of it that second year, depending on what happens. What grade do you give Justin Fields coming over to New York?
I give it an A, just because, like, what do you have to lose? Like, you give him a deal, it's a 2-year, $40 million deal, really like a 1-year deal. If you catch lightning in a bottle with him, great, got him for pennies on the dollar. Um, and if he doesn't work out, you draft a quarterback next year. If you guys, because if we lose enough games next year, we'll be in that top tier range for a quarterback. And the class next year is a lot stronger than the one that we have coming up this year. So um, you have nothing to lose. And Fields has had his moments where he has looked special in the league. He's also had his moments where he's looked god awful, and that's why he's been on 2 different franchises in the last 2 years. So, but for the Jets, it was a gamble worth taking with this new regime, coming off of what we had with Aaron Rodgers. You're bringing in some youth, a guy who's a dual threat, and that's going to open up the run game. So you're kind of seeing how the offense might look next year, and they might have an identity going with a lot more running, RPOs, opening things up. So I like the signing. I'm rooting for Justin. Even if it doesn't work out, still rooting for him. But I'm hopeful, because I'd love for him to be. It's similar to what we saw with Sam last year, or like a Baker, where this guy's slept on and forgotten about, and you find him and he plays amazing. And then you have a decision: do I bring him back? Do I let him go? Um, so hey, I'm happy. I'm good. As long as we got off of that Aaron Rodgers contract, I'm straight.
Hey, in and off the show, the losers of free agency, if you had to pick from these 4 teams, the Chargers, the Texans, the Dolphins, or the Cowboys, who's the biggest loser of free agency so far? Now, I know we only been 3-4 days into free agency, but so far, who has been the loser of free agency out of those 4 teams?
Say those 4 teams again, Tone.
Chargers, Texans, Dolphins, Cowboys.
I probably say based on expectation alone, you probably have to go with either Dallas or Houston. I'd probably go Dallas though. I mean, they're in cap hell though, right? So what did you expect? I don't know what when people the first take was on TV talking about it today, like, what are they doing? Are you guys like, paying attention? Are we that far lost with this stupid sports discourse on TV? You guys don't understand the situation they're in financially. They have to pay. They literally made Dak the richest quarterback in the game a year ago. And then they, after that, went out. They still have to go out and give Michael Parsons his money, and they paid CeeDee Lamb. They are literally hamstrung. There's not much they can do, that makes any sense. They have to build through the draft. That's what they. So it's tough. It's, what? It's tough to call them a loser under those circumstances. I just give you a lot of reasons why they're handling it the way they're handling it. But what can they do there? Like, it's tough. It's just when you're Dallas, you have a lot of expectation, right? And especially when you pay your quarterback that much money. So I'd still would say they're losers, but I think also Houston, like, gutting your offensive line. I mean, gutting it is tough. And I know I hear the logic behind it, that they didn't play well last year anyways, and they figure they're going to rebuild it through the draft and take that approach. Okay, that's fine, but I mean, damn, that's rough for CJ Stroud, and I feel bad for what's coming. He's gonna have to get some wheels on him because he's gonna be on the run quite a bit back there next year trying to evade guys. So I think those two teams, in particular, I think had rough off seasons. And also spinning back, I'll say this too: Justin Fields is an A. I actually agree. It is, because if you're going to take a chance on a stopgap quarterback or whatever, do it with one that has potential. So it's a good move for them. It really is. I actually really do like it. And I thought when I heard the rumor, I was like, this is what I would hope would happen for them. Oh, but I also kind of hope the Giants would have done it. It is what it is. Here we are.
I'd say the Texans. I'd go as the biggest loser so far. Losing two starting tackles, and Kenyon Green and Laramie Tunsil. That's not ideal in an off season where you're trying to support your young quarterback as much as you can. Sure, they made a trade for Christian Kirk, and Kenyon Green was swapped out for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But how does that help C.J. Stroud? Like, Christian Kirk is good when he's out there, but he's another guy who deals with injuries. If that was the case, they could have just, brought Diggs back and rocked out like that. He's still out there, and he's probably going to have to sign a 1-year deal. So, what they're doing in Houston, I'm confused by. They're probably going to draft tackles in the first couple rounds, maybe to save some more money, because Tunsil, he was going to get another deal soon. So maybe you get ahead of it, trade guys before they're up for a new contract extension, whatever. But at this point, he's still on his rookie year or rookie deal, CJ is. So why are you trading your best tackle, one of the best tackles in the NFL? It doesn't make much sense. So let's see how good Houston is next year. They still have Nico Collins, but besides him and Christian Kirk, that's it. Tank he's not going to play next year. All those injuries to his knee, he's going to miss the whole season. So it's going to be an interesting one. I don't want to say rebuilding because they've made the playoffs the last 2 years. But it's not looking pretty with teams getting better in the AFC.
Yeah, I'd also like to see what the Chargers do for the rest of the time. They had $90 million coming into free agency. I don't know if they actually made the team that much better. I don't know if they actually provided more help for Herbert. So that'll be interested to see what comes of that. Because, again, we're talking about franchise quarterbacks. You have franchise quarterbacks. You want to make sure that they are in the best position to succeed, and you want to maximize that time that you have with them to try to go win. The best way you do that, as we just said, you provide them with talent, you give them the talent, and top-tier quarterbacks, they figure it out because they stay ready, so they ain't got to get ready. Bench Mob, we out. Peace.
Peace.